France is in the depths of a major political crisis. Public finances are spiraling out of control. Every week sees a new series of street protests, and the effects of mass migration are plain to see in every French city and town. And at the centre sits Emmanuel Macron, deeply unpopular and beset by political shock after political shock. For months now, Macron has failed to produce a government, losing prime minister one after another. The latest crisis saw Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu resign after just days in the job and only hours after announcing the formation of a new government. The parliamentary deadlock is simple and intractable. Macron's coalition of centrist parties doesn't have the numbers to push through a budget. Macron's total refusal to work with the surging Rassemblement National, the party of Marine Le Pen and Jordan Bardella, in effect his cordon sanitaire against the wishes of the electorate, this has left him with nowhere to go. France needs new elections, but Macron refuses to go. In fact, instead of facing the electorate, he's redoubled his efforts on the world stage, leading the charge to recognise Palestine and spending his energy on doomed efforts to centralise more power in Brussels. As markets tumble and France's credibility in Europe wanes, the Fifth Republic looks leaderless and adrift, and it is. And even Macron's allies are calling him to go. But will he face the music or continue trying to cling to power? To get to the bottom of the political crisis and figure out why it's so important that Macron has to go or hold new elections, I'm delighted to speak to Thierry Mariani, MEP. He's joining us from Strasbourg. So, Thierry, could you just explain to me what's the kind of latest phase in this kind of repeated political crises and drama in France?
Well, France, in fact, has fallen in a political crisis since the European election. Why? Because at the European election, the party of Marine Le Pen scored two times more than the party of Macron. And some hours after the result, he decided the same day, the 9th of June, to make a snap election. What was the result of snap election? Absolutely no majority. That means for the first time in the French parliament, you have three groups who cannot work together. The first is the group of Mr. Mélenchon, the far left, who support Hamas, who refuse to condemn the exaction and what's happened with this group against Israelis, for example. The center is the group of Macron, and the last one is the group of patriotic of Marine Le Pen. And of course, it's impossible to have an agreement. Why? Because we have two different DNA. For example, for Macron, it's a globalist, international Europeist. For us, it's patriotic, and we want to save our sovereignty. And now there is no majority. He tried to make a government. The last government was 8 months, and the new government, it's honestly, nobody did the same in France. It just was in function 14 hours, not even a day. And at this time, they tried to make a new government. But what we said on the party of Marine Le Pen, we said, the show, it's enough. Okay, it's honestly, it's too much for the French. We need a government. There is two solutions. First, we must to return in front the voters and make a snap election. Second one, in fact, if he wants, because he's the most responsible in this crisis, Mr. Macron can resign. But there is not other choice to make a new government, and 5 days after a new election or something like that is finished. The crisis in France is too much important. The debt created by the government since 2017, that means since Mr. Macron has been elected, is too much. It's time to give the power to the people to choose the new government.
And what's one of the key elements I know of the repeated collapses of governments in France has been the inability to pass a budget. What's going on with this, and why is this so crucial to what's happened?
Yes, because in fact, by the constitution, we must vote the budget in the next week. And in fact, it's nearly impossible. What is the situation in France? We are the number one for tax in the Europe Union. The tax in France. Sometimes I have impression that I am in the socialist government or maybe in Soviet state. We are the number one for national expense by state. That means, everybody is under assistance. If an immigrant arrives in France, sometimes he touches more money than a French who has a low salary to work. and the budget is nearly impossible to do. Why? Because all the time the left, for example, said we must make more tax. It's the great project of the Socialist Party, of the Mélenchon party, to create a new tax on the rich. But excuse me, we are still the number one in Europe. And many people want to leave the country because, I repeat, if you make money honestly in this country, most of this money will go to the state. And the crucial question is we need a budget in emergency. Why? Because after Macron, we are the number one for the debt too in Europe. You know, when you arrive, I would tell you two figures. When Macron arrived, the debt was 2,000 billions euro. Now it's 3,400 billions euro. That's mean in 8 years, this guy who was described like the Mozart of finance, in fact, did 1,400 billions of debt in more. It's completely crazy. And they said it was the Mozart of finance. In fact, it's the Attila of the budget. Nobody now can know how to make a budget. And it's sure that to make a new budget is completely impossible with this situation. That's why we ask Marine Le Pen, Jordan Bardella, to return in front of the voters. And in fact, they said, no, we cannot return in front of the voters. You know why? Because Marine Le Pen can win. In fact, it is a great Democrat who don't want to hurt the voice of the people.
And this relates to one of the broader things that's going on in French politics, as it were, which is the very discredited legacy of Macron and Macronism, which basically suggested that you could have a coalition only of the center and that your entire political project would be about keeping out the patriotic forces represented by the Rassemblement National.
Yes, you know, we respect the institution. By the constitution, Macron is elected until April 2027. That's been nearly 2 years. But the question is it possible for the second economy of the European Union, for a great country like France, to stay nearly 2 years in this situation? The answer is clear. It's no. What we ask, we don't ask to Macron to resign. We just said we must return to the voters. And Mr. President, you have the choice. We can return in front of the voters to elect a new majority in the parliament because we need a majority. Or if you don't want to do it, be responsible. Excuse me, like the General de Gaulle, who in 1969 lost a referendum on a very not important question. It was a question about organization of local power. What he said, I lost the referendum, I resign immediately. That's honestly somebody who respects the people. We have institution. Macron can stay until 2027, but we have the spirit of institution. When you are chief of the state, you must have the trust of the people, especially in this period, which is very difficult. You know how much is the rating opinion in favor of Mr. Macron in this moment? Less than 15%. Less than 50%. That means if you want to have a success in the discussion in a dinner, you said, oh, it's time that Macron go away, and everybody apply. Honestly, he create the crisis. He is the only one responsible. He must choose new election or go away.
And rather than facing the people at the moment, Macron seems to be increasingly obsessed with international issues, such as leading the charge for the recognition of the Palestinian state and always talking about European issues rather than focusing on the issues in France. Is this something that you notice as well?
Yes, you know, when you are not popular in your country, you try to be popular abroad. And it's exactly the strategy of Macron. What's the members of parliament who support Macron said, we must keep this chief of state because all the world dream to have him like a chief of state. Honestly, it's a joke. Look, for example, the example of recognition of Palestine state. Okay, he make a speech on the United Nations, and what's after? Nothing changed. People continue to die. The wars continue to die. Excuse me. The only clever plan for the moment is the plan of Mr. Trump. I don't know if it will be a success, but for one time, we have a plan. And not just we must recognize two states, and after that, I make a great statement, bye-bye, and good luck. In fact, Macron don't make international policy. He make international comedy for statement. Look, for example, Ukraine. Ukraine, I think he organized 6 or 7 meetings with his best friend, the Prime Minister of Keir Starmer in Great Britain. You know, I understand why they are very good friends, because I saw the British press and they have the same poor rating in opinion in favor. I think for Keir Starmer is around 15 or 16. In fact, excuse me, and I'm afraid for that. I will tell you the same. I'm afraid for that for my children and for all my friends. I think this guy, the British and my president are able to put maybe a more conflict in Europe, because you know, when you are in a difficult situation, a little war sometimes can be useful for, because you must be unified around me, because there is a war, the country is attacked, and I'm completely afraid and really worried by all these statements who want to push us in a war who is not our war. And I'm not alone, because many French realize that all the declaration of Mr. Macron is to continue the war. What is the plan of European Union and France to stop the war? No plan. We just said we must help Ukrainian. It's very courageous. We give money and poor Ukrainian and Russia died. Honestly, it's not the plan for peace. If it is that the best president for foreign affairs, I can make a president who at it everybody who wants it.
And just to end, this is not just a kind of crisis in the political halls of Paris. This is increasingly represented in the streets right across France as well. The instability at the government is causing serious instability right across French society.
Yes, because nobody knows where we're going, you know. Excuse me, I saw some people who are in the enterprise. They said, we pay, which tax, for example, we will pay next year. And everybody is a little bit afraid, because when in a state you have no direction, economy little by little is frozen, people are worried, and it's not in favor of a good situation. And on that, if you had the situation in Europe, for example, I was in debate this morning in the European Parliament. It's very clear that many of my friends dream to have nearly a little war with Russia, because, you know, we must react, we must support, we must continue the war. It's like, you know, in the Middle Age, like a crusade against to save Jerusalem. Honestly, I'm a little bit afraid by that. The French are afraid by that, and I think it's a very dangerous moment. That's why we need in France somebody who is quiet, somebody who is serious, and I'm not sure that is the best quality of this president.
So yes, Thierry, thank you. We very much hope that the French people are soon able to have a say, and completely agree that what France needs above all is new elections. So we hope that your party can bring that about. But thank you so much for speaking to us today.
Thank you.